What's up? It's your boy JayyRobb. This is a segment of Why Do I Rap for God? Get ready. Tune in. Okay, so why do I rap for God? Well, it wasn't until God found me. I was living homeless in a car in the middle of a Walmart parking lot, being signed to a record label named IMG when God found me. I knew I was different from growing up. God was always on my side from the moment I was born. I had a condition where I had a muscle above my stomach that didn't fully develop, and I literally died 6 different times when they pronounced me dead. And they actually called the morgue to come get my body. And they basically gave up on me. The doctors gave up on me. My mom and dad didn't, and they kept trying to do CPR, do CPR. And then next thing you know, um, I started getting air back in my lungs, and they had to call the morgue to cancel them, and they actually put me on life support up until I was 16 months old. They didn't tell my mom and dad if, they told my mom and dad when I do die, that they have to go and seek and get help. Later on after life, after I survived that, um, I was a kid in school just trying to fit in, coming from a mixed family, and I used to get teased and bullied and stuff in school, and so at the age of 10, I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. I started doing the wrong things. And not knowing at that age what I was doing, I met a guy named Raul. He was 12, I was 10. And he was like, hey, if you want respect from people, come with me after school and let me introduce you to my cousin. So I was like, sure, let's do it. So after that, I got introduced to his cousin, and who happened to be one of the biggest drug dealers in New York at the time. And so every day, um, he wanted us to come and take a black duffel bag to an alleyway every day and put it in an alleyway and keep walking to school. And that's what we did. Till one day he came and stopped us and told us not to walk together no more because there's some people trying to take over his clientele, that he wants us to walk 6 feet apart from each other. So every day we will alternate who's in the front, who's in the back. And about 4 days after that, that's when a black car came up and started spraying rounds out of the car. Um, and it hit me in the back of my head. And I took off the duffel bag, threw it down the alleyway. And I just sat there and I was like, man, I felt the pain, the burning sensation in the back of my head. And I pulled my hand out, saw the blood gushing down. And I just rubbed my hand up on the ground, rolled myself up under the car next to me, tried to shove my feet to my waistline into the sewage drain. And I watched them as they got out of the car, executed my friend, and they went running down the aisleway looking for me, looking in the dumpsters, kicking garbage bags, things of that nature. I was like, wow, they were looking for me. But I stayed quiet. I was in a lot of pain. And I heard the guy say, forget him, get the bags, let's go. They got the bags, jumped out of the car, and then they took off. When the sirens got closer, it was like I felt relief almost, and I rolled myself as much as I could out from under the car, and that's all I remember. Till about 4 months later when I woke up in the hospital. Wow. Years later, um, after I survived, my dad brought me down to Orlando, Florida, um, and this is basically my home since I was 11 years old. And growing up in Orlando, I still, my dad tried to get me out of the gangs and the activity that was going on. We came here to Orlando, and my mom and my dad got divorced when I was 7. So I didn't really have my mom around me. She would come during Christmas time and my birthdays, stuff like that. And then I wouldn't hear from her or see her um, because of those times. But after I survived and we moved here to Orlando, my dad thought he would sign me up to acting school, where I started my career in acting. But before I got into acting, um, at the age of 12, 11, and 12, um, 13 um, years old, I was trying my hardest to be different than a lot of people, but still try to fit in. Um, it wasn't until I realized that my dad is basically saved my life. And so, even though my dad wasn't really around, my dad owned businesses such as Four Flowers and Gift Shops, a decorating company. He started a corporation called Coach America and became very successful in that. He owned 2 restaurants, and so you know, if you ever heard the name Flores Plus, that was my dad's company. Coach America was my dad's company. Uh, he did the Johnson towels, cross pins, Trump towers in the decorating industry. But now going on from that, my dad signed me up to keep me out of the streets, keep me away from gangs, to you know doing acting. Well, my dad left to go to Brazil, and he left me for 2 years by myself in a house. And my mom didn't like that, so she came down and got me from Albertville, Alabama, and she picked me up, brought me back to Alabama, and then she um, got me in school up there and stuff like that. Alabama to me, from coming from New York and Florida, was a big culture shock, as you guys would know. But I did a couple years in Alabama where, um, which I'm very grateful for, because that's where I started my music, and becoming in the music industry. I started rapping with a group called the Alabama Villains. So when I started rapping with the group called Alabama Villains, what happened was I met a lady. Her name was Lily. At the time, I still work with her even till today. Lily's been an inspirational to me um, as well as my cousin Maurice Trick Daddy Young. Um, I've been following Trick Daddy my whole life, ever since he got out of prison in 1996 and went to my grandma's house and was writing music, doing it for the streets and stuff. He was a big inspirational person, as well as Lily was. But Lily gave me the opportunity to rap with her, and she jumped on a lot of tracks with me. She made all my beats, and I came out in 2004 with an album called "Gangsta Ways" 2004 by JayyRobb, which sold a lot of copies. I had it on Q, Music for Less, Circuit City, Best Buy. It went everywhere. And it wasn't because of me, it was because the Alabama Phillies. They made me who I was. But actually, watching them, watching Trick Daddy and stuff like that, that inspired me to keep writing and keep going. But at that time, I wasn't doing it for God. I was doing it for the streets and for the world. But something deep down inside me said, I'm not one for the world anymore. I was made special, and God kept me safe through a lot of hard times in my life. So I ended up changing my ways. I stopped cussing and everything at the age of 19. Um, I drank one time when I was 21 in, it was Las Vegas at my brother's wedding. And I didn't like how I felt the next day when I woke up. And a lot of my friends, they videotaped how I was acting, and I was like, hey, I don't like that guy. I don't want to be like that guy. And then after videotaping me rapping the gangster rap and hearing all those cuss words and stuff coming out of my mouth, I didn't look good. I didn't feel good. I said, this isn't for me. So I stopped rapping and I stopped doing everything. And I went into acting. So at the age of 14, um, going back in time, I came back to Orlando, Florida, where my dad linked me in with a agency who got me in the TV show called Nickelodeon, Are You Afraid of the Dark? And so I was flying from Alabama to Orlando, back and forth. And then um, we were shooting here in Orlando at Universal Studios, Nickelodeon, Are You Afraid of the Dark? The Vampire series. And then out in LA, back and forth. After that, I was very blessed to have that under my belt. Now, fast forwarding under in time, coming up into 2000 and I want to say it was 2006, 2005, maybe a little later than that. I started rapping with a group called the Dirty Boys, and then after that, I stopped rapping altogether. I started working a 9 to 5 at a hotel um, because I became homeless. How did that happen? Well, I was married and had 2 kids, and if you listen to my song "God's Got Me," 2014, my wife was diagnosed with colon cancer stage 3. My ex-wife, and so in that same year, my granddad Butts passed away in February of 2014. February 2014. He he passed away. Oh, he passed away, and then after that, um, one of my best friends committed suicide, and he passed away. And then my homegirl Karen, she was going through some things, and me and her grew up together, and I knew everything about her. And she ended up committing suicide and passing away. And so I was the last person to see her alive. She left my house at like 11 something, and then she committed suicide at 12 something in the morning. So if you ever listen to my song, My Past Life, or no, I'm sorry, It's Gonna Be Okay. That song is about her, but that's for a different segment. But anyway, um, so after doing acting and I landed parts in the Nickelodeon Are You Afraid of the Dark, Deep Blue Sea as an extra with LL Cool J, Samuel Jackson, and then I was in another one um, called 300 and Sharknado 3 that was um, filmed at Universal Studios Orlando. After being in those movies, I went back into rap. After everything that was going on in my life, after um, Karen committed suicide, my wife became cancer free. Then in September 1st, she left me, taking my kids away from me. And then in A month later in October, my father ended up passing away. And then in December, my grandmother, my other grandmother, ended up passing away. So a lot of things happened to me in 2014 that I just wanted to give up on life. I fell into a really dark depression. And 2015 came, and I couldn't take no more. I wanted to give up. So what did I do? I let the devil get in my head, and I ended up trying to take my life 5 times. 3 times of the 5 times, I tried to put a gun to my head and pull a trigger, and the gun jammed up on me. The 4th time, I tried hanging myself with a belt and it broke. And the 5th time, I rented a hotel room and jumped out the 3-story building window, scraping my left side on the trees and bushes, breaking 2 toes on my right foot, scraping both my knees, both my elbows, and bumped my head on the ground. Man, the doctor came in and he reminded me who God was. And he told me that God wasn't ready for me. And how he know that is, I'm leaving the hospital with a bump on my forehead, comes a couple scrapes and bruises and 2 broken toes, where he sees people just trip over a curb and die. And after he told me that, I had a flashback in my mind to when God brought me to heaven when I was in a coma for 4 months after getting shot. And I remember what God told me. And did I see God? Did I hear God? I mean, did I see God or Jesus? No, but I did hear a voice. And I know what he said to me. I never went to church. The only time I went to church was in Alabama with a wonderful pastor that I'm still trying to find. Her name is Pastor Jenna Alcorn. She was a big, big inspiration in my life. She took me shopping, bought me a bike. I used to walk to the church every Sunday, every Wednesday, and every day for Bible school because I was seeking something greater than I am. And there was nobody in my family who went to church except my grandma Butts and my grandfather Butts. And that's when I was like 15, 16 years old. But going back going forward now, keeping it, into 2015, where I tried to commit suicide, and the doctor telling me, God's not ready for me. It just reminded me of what God told me about who I am. And from that day forward, I wanted to be different. I was dared to be different. I didn't. After hearing my name, I woke up. I pulled all the pillows down around the windows, and I was looking out the window, and I was like, man, who was that said my name? It was clear as day. It was enough to wake me out of a dead sleep. So I was like, man, I'm tripping. I don't know. This is I don't know. So then I lay back down and I went back to sleep, and I was like, yeah, nah, I don't know what's going on. And so next thing I know, I hear my name again. So I got up quickly. I popped my head out the sunroof of the car. I was looking around. There was nobody anywhere around me. And I was facing a lake, so nobody was over there. And there was no cars, nobody around me. I was in an open parking lot. And I'm like, okay, God, you got my attention. And without hesitation, right after that, that's when the voice came back and said, tomorrow, go get a job. And I'm like, man, how am I going to do this? I said, okay, you got me. I'm going to do it. I got in my car. I drove all the way up on I-4 to exit 55 to Love gas station, which is a truck stop. I took a shower there. I changed my clothes. got back on the highway, came up 27, got off on 192, and I stopped at this hotel called Orbit One Vacation Villas. And as I walked in, I was like, I'm trying to find a job. Are you guys hiring? They said, we're not hiring in front desk, but security's hiring. Let me get you the manager. And come to find out, it was somebody I used to work with a long time ago. And she came out, named Jenny, recognized who I was right off the bat. And she goes, oh my God, it's been a long time. And I was like, I couldn't remember who she was. But I asked her, she reminded me who she was. And I asked her if she was hiring. And she said yes. I told her the situation I'm in. And so she hired me right there on the spot. She's like, when can you work? And I was like, I can start tomorrow. And she goes, well, why not today? And I was like, well, I can start today. So she gave me the application, made me fill it out, gave me my shirts. And then she asked me if I was still doing music. And I told her, well, I still play around here and there. And she goes, well, we need a DJ out by the pool. Do you think you could do that? And I was like, well, I still got my DJ equipment in the storage. I could definitely do that for extra money. So I was wearing two hats, security hat and DJing. And I started doing DJing by the pool and started getting a lot of fans, a lot of people, and it was great. So I ended up stopping, on break. And I was like, you know what? I want to get back into music. And I said, but God, I don't want to go against you. I want you to guide me in my life. So I ended up that day surrendering my life to God. And I went out by the water. I started writing music again. And next thing you know, I get approached by a guy named Rick Robinson. He was double R from Bone Thugs and Harmony. And he's like, hey, how you doing, son? I was like, I'm doing okay. He goes, I see you over here working on something. What are you working on? It sounds like you're rapping. I was like, yes, sir. I'm actually a Christian rapper, and I'm doing music for God, and this is why I'm doing it. And he's like, well, okay, well, spit something for me. Let me hear it. And I started spit something for him, let him hear it, and I told him, hey, I'm actually Trick Daddy's little cousin. And he's like, oh, man, I actually worked with Trick Daddy on a song with Project Pat called My Projects. And he's like, man, that would be awesome. He's like, let me find out a little bit more about you. He goes, tomorrow I'm having a meeting, and I want you to come. He gave me his business card, told me to go down to his office near Mall Millennium, where I met up with him the next day, and he offered me a contract. I was like, man, this is great. This is awesome. So him and then he signed me with Universal Records, and they basically took me and basically started working with me. I was still homeless, signed to a major record label. It wasn't until later on when I found out what they were doing for me, but that's a whole nother story. Don't want to get into that. But let's just say I started blowing up. JayyRobb's name has been getting more popular in the gospel world. Now, when I was doing gangster rap music with Alicia, aka Lily, she was telling me, if I would do gospel rap, that she would do my beats for free. I said, man, Lily, I can't do that. I'm from the streets. I got to do it for the streets. Because I came from the streets, I'm going to die in the streets. And then now here I am, years later, doing gospel rap. So I kind of, and not only her, but my grandmother kind of put it in my head too, my grandmother Butts, because Trick was trying to write music on her couch when I was sitting there running around. And I heard her say to Trick, why don't you do music for, gospel rap? Do it for God. Because I know a manager of a guy coming out called Kurt Franklin. You should link up. And he said, nah, auntie, I can't do it. I got to keep it street. So it kind of got in me about doing gospel rap anyway, but I didn't know that's what God was leading me to. See, there's a lot of messages that we get from God that we think is for other people, but in reality, it's really for us. So we got to keep it for us. So as I got signed to IMG, I started hitting the road, doing things. I was around Pastor Troy, Ekaneli, Young Buck, different people, different things, even doing gospel rap. And I started listening to Lecrae and Tripley and Emilio, and